My name's Helouise Miller.
Yeah.
I grew up in the St Anne's area
Right.
from the age of about 3 upwards.
Okay.
No, before then.
Yeah.
First of all, I lived on St Anne's Well Road in the old houses.
Right.
I believe very near Shelton Street.
Okay.
And then I went to Shelton Street School. Shelton Street's still there, but
Right,
the
okay.
school isn't actually there anymore.
Right. Okay.
Then I went from there to a masonette, which was on Hunger Hill Road,
Right.
and we lived on Heather Close. I'm not mentioning numbers, but
Yeah, that's
we lived
fine,
on Heather Close,
Yeah.
and there was a park across the way from us. From there, I can't remember what park. It was just Hunger Hill Park,
Yeah.
I think it was called.
Yeah.
And there was allotments right up until the front where they're not there anymore. And at the top used to be what was the Millennium Centre, was Sycamore School. And
Yeah.
then they changed it into a new building. But I actually went to the old Sycamore School as well. I was about 5 or 6 when I went to the Sycamore School.
Right.
The top end, the old Sycamore School.
Yeah.
And then came down in from 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 10
Yeah.
when I was in the new Sycamore School.
Right. Okay.
On the park, there was used to be allotments, like I said, straight up to the road, Hunger Hill Road.
And were they part of the big St Anne's allotments that's still there?
Yeah, but they was part of it, and then they got cleared right way back.
Yeah.
So that the park had a big play area.
Right. Okay.
And then they changed the top end, so it was right. You had to go up all the way up these steps. I can't even remember. It was heading towards the allotments, but the allotments were took all the way back,
Right.
and it was changed just into like forest area to play in.
Right. And is this the clearance then?
That was all the clearance.
Early,
That was. I remember the allotments being right up to Hunger Hill Road.
And is that the early 70s then?
I think it might have been. Yes.
Yeah.
From there, they cleared the park off the front as well and put that more around the side of where, because the park was on the front and it had one of them big giant spider's webs.
Right.
Where my brother fell through and knocked himself out for 3 days.
Oh dear.
So yes, they were quite dangerous back then. And I think we had big swings and a big slide on that park as well.
Right.
And it was on the front, and that was cleared into clear space as well now.
Right.
But they still kept the bowling green.
Right.
Where we had a park keeper called Ray who was on there, and he taught us green bowling.
Right.
Me and my brother.
So I was going to say, so who did you play down there with then?
My brother a lot of the time when he was little.
Right.
I had a few friends, but I only remember just playing with
And
my
is he
brother
older
a lot.
or younger than
Younger
you?
than me. From there, I started to venture out a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
From the ages of about 11, 10, 11. And I started going to the King's Hall's Methodist Church.
Yeah.
Which was the first outward bound I used to go.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I used to go and see my friends up in St Anne's, and that's when I also started going to the St Anne's Adventure Playground.
And is that what you called it at the time? That's what
Yeah,
it was
we
known
called
as,
it Adventure Playground.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I mean, that's what we called it, St Anne's Adventure Playground.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was loads of activities. I remember that they built a hut on the top of the bank when I first started going, and it was just plain big metal thing, if I can remember, metal and concrete, I think.
And is that what became the building there?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So you remember them building that then?
Yeah, I remember it being built.
Right. And you say you were about 11 or something at this sort of time?
Around about 11 years old. I think, I'm quite sure it was about 11 because I was going out from about 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
I stayed more around my area when I was smaller.
Sure.
But then ventured out once I started going to senior school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which reminds me that the guy, what's his name? Was it Roger?
I can't remember it. Roger, that's right. Yes.
Right. Well, I remember him.
So this is the guy on the photo.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember him a lot.
Yeah.
I don't remember the other kids.
Right. But Roger was one of the play workers there.
Yeah, he was one of the play workers there at the time, and I used to go there a lot when he was there as well. I seem to remember there was a woman there at the same time, but I can't remember her name at all.
Right.
But I do remember Roger, and I remember the sort of layout of the place, like it had a giant slide on one side and a pulley down the other.
Right.
I seem to remember those, and then I think it was quite high up,
Yeah.
and it was just like a whole cliffside at one stage.
So how did that feel then?
It was
at
quite
that age?
It was daunting to me. I'm still scared of heights,
Right,
but
okay.
for me, it was just an adventure. You know, you would go up the bank and walk down it, and it was the only way I got to it, unless you went all the way, and then they closed it off, I think, at the bottom at one stage, and you could only get round to it at the top end.
Because it's Nugent Gardens, isn't it?
Yeah.
So did you have to go right round? There's a path up the side now.
Right, I remember going up and to the right and up.
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what the...
I think that path's still there.
Yeah, so that's
At the
the
side.
path. You go all the way round to the top end, came in through the top gates. Whereas at one time there was a gate at the bottom, you could go in
Right.
and then go up the bank.
But then they closed that.
Yes,
Right,
I'm
okay.
sure of it.
Okay.
But I remember the pulley right from the top, right down to the bottom.
So it went all the way down the hill?
all
Not
the
just-
way down the hill. Not just halfway, it went all the way down. Kids loved it.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it.
I bet they did.
Yeah.
I bet they did. And so do you remember the playground opening? Or was it already open when you went? 'Cause
I seem to remember it already open.
it was already open.
Or that... No, I just seem to remember it's always been there.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I think it was there when I was even little.
Right.
I remember kids playing on it and wondered if I could go play at some point or another.
Yeah.
They did a lot of arts and crafts in there. I remember they did loads of discos.
Yeah?
Yeah. I remember the time when they were doing Northern Soul.
Okay.
And I used to dance the Northern Soul stuff. I
Yeah.
can't do it anymore, but yeah. And songs like Adam and Eve being out and stuff like that. So it was. And I just heard it just recently when I went to a wedding reception,
Right.
and I'm just sort of like, oh, I remember that. That was Northern Soul. I used to do that at the Veg Playground. Seeing that. I've been reminded about it all. It was just some of the things that we used to do. I used to hang around with boys quite a lot anyway.
Right.
I was a bit of a tom girl.
Right.
So I used to be playing on the park area more times than I was in the building.
Right, so you choose to play outside more than
I
the
liked
inside
playing
stuff.
outside. Always did. When we had the allotments, it was always in them.
Right. So you had allotment as well in...
No, we didn't. We used to
But
play
you
on
got-
the
you got-
allotments.
Tell me about that then, because that sounds
Yeah, well, it
interesting.
was fun but the thing is that one of the reasons why we play on the allotments is because you go scrumping or blackberry picking
Yeah.
or whatever else.
So explain scrumping to someone that's not heard that term before.
Scrumping is basically going into someone's allotment and taking the fruit.
Yeah.
Which was a very naughty thing to do, but that's what we did.
Yeah.
My brother got caught for it several times.
Right, okay.
Got dragged by his ear by a policeman to the house.
Right.
Yeah, been scumping again.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But that's just some of the things that we do.
Of course.
I mean, we got told off for it, but then sometimes some of the people who owned allotments had abundance of fruit and just give them you anyway.
Yeah.
But so, you know, but we used to like getting the apples and the pears and stuff like that, if they were all right, that is.
And would you do anything with them, or would you just get them for sake of getting them, or would you
yeah,
get
we'd make
them to
apple
eat?
pies and stuff like
so you'd
that.
use it,
so
so you would use them for stuff. Oh, well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, so I mean, sometimes we'd just plain eat them, but if you got crab apples,
You'd have to cook something with them, would you?
yeah, you have to put sugar in with those. Just playing around.
Yeah.
It didn't really cause any problems. We
Yeah.
just wasn't. Me and my brother wasn't that type. We weren't
Yeah.
there to break anything or anything else. We just went exploring.
Yeah.
It was always good to just see what they were growing, how it was, you know, and whether it was just fun.
And it's a big open space in St Anne's as well, isn't
Yeah,
it? So I guess
was, yeah. And the thing is that St Anne's went round from Hunger Hill. You could go all the way over to Ransom Road through the allotments. We knew the path round, so you could follow it all the way through up to school.
Yeah.
If you wanted to. So we took different routes all the time. And we've even gone, you know, I still remember that you got down to the other side and there was like a landfill area.
Right.
And we used to explore through there as well. And it was dangerous, but we just did it.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of the things we always did. We always found stuff and took it back home if it looked useful or whatever else. And just recently, I mean a few years ago, my friend who lives up here near me now took me over to the allotments, and I was remembering, you know, because they have an old a part of the allotments which is a community based now.
Yes.
Allotment.
And did you know there's the heritage garden there as well, which
Yeah,
has
I
got
think
the Victorian greenhouse that's been renovated.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Because that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go and see that. But I remember all of that. I'm walking all the way through. And you can go in from so many different entrances as well.
Yeah.
And we just loved it. It was just all part of the exploration of being in our area. And I'm so happy and thankful that they're still there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's not a lot of screen spaces left anywhere for any children nowadays. And if there is, it's very minimal and just got safety equipment on there.
Yeah.
You know,
children. That's a natural space, isn't it?
It is a real natural space. You fall down, you hurt yourself. You've got no one else to pick yourself up to take yourself back home again. You had to go.
I was going to ask
be
that.
careful.
So when you were playing on the allotments, was it just you and your brother, or you and your brother and your friends?
It was my friends.
I'm imagining
me and
no
brother.
adults around then.
No adults. Because a lot of the time, either they might have been few we were passing on the way going to whichever way we're going.
Yeah.
But it was never an adult with us.
Yeah.
It was always us kids.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. Well,
and there wasn't older ones neither. We were always round about the same age as each other.
Yeah.
So, you know, we just got used to just doing things in our own way. Me and my brother sort of like started splitting off as such and gaining our own friends as we got older, especially when I went up to big school.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was going over to the Venge playground then as well. So, and he didn't. I don't remember him going there.
Right.
It's only me who went there with my friends.
So you don't remember your brother going?
No, not with me to that. I mean, he had his friend. He used to go on bike rides down.
Right.
My brother went bike riding. He used to go from Nottingham, St Anne's, all the way to Matlock.
Right. Wow.
on his bike. He used to ride all over the place on his bike. I never rode a bike.
That's a long way, isn't it?
It is. It was huge amounts of miles he used to go.
That's a day trip, isn't it?
Yeah.
On your bike.
Yeah, but he did it. They could do it in one day, less than that even.
Right.
And be back for tea, sort of thing. So he was pretty fast.
That's interesting.
And
was that just accepted? I'm imagining that was something
my
that
mum
you
never
were just...
worried about.
Yeah.
The thing for my mum is as long as we got back safely for tea time, we're fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we had no phones back then. We couldn't just phone up mum and say, oh, we're going to be this late or we're going to be that late. We've got to get back on time.
So
there was a safety factor in that it's night times. Especially at night times as well, we had to be back in by a certain time, you know. But, I mean, that would be meaning for anybody now. I mean, I've got my grandson now and I let him play out.
Yeah.
But we don't have a phone, he doesn't have a phone at the moment.
Right,
and he's 13 and we still won't let him have a phone at the moment.
Yeah.
So I have to tell him that there's certain times you come in, or sometimes you check in and then you can go back out again and then you can come back in at your usual time, which is supposed to be in time and tea time and whatever. He plays out all day now.
Yeah.
Whereas at one stage he'd just be up on the computer.
Well, it's good that he's getting
you
out.
know, so I think it's much better for kids to play out.
Yeah.
Much better for them to explore. You know, you give them some ground rules and you hope that they stick by it, you know, and not get themselves into trouble or anything else like that. But we had to do the same with our mum and dads. So you just made sure you didn't get in trouble. Sycamore School, Shelton Street School and Elliot Durham.
Do you remember playtimes there? What do you remember about your playtimes and how you...
Hopscotch.
Hopscotch, yeah.
Skipping ropes.
Yeah.
2-ball.
2-ball, yeah. So explain to me how you played 2-ball. What did you...
It's just like juggling, basically, but you had 2 balls and you threw them up in the air and see if you can keep catching them.
Yeah.
Oh, and you throw them up against the wall. You used to do the clapping games as well.
Yeah.
Gosh, I've forgotten all.
Do you remember any of the songs?
No. Absolutely, they're wiped. Oh my gosh.
It's alright. When we go into the school in a couple of weeks, we're going to be...
I think they still
showing some of those games and trying to share, because I think some of them still happen.
Yeah,
but it's interesting where those games came from.
And we used to do the nursery rhymes and everything else, but even they've changed over the years. They wanted to keep the old games in, especially when they changed from the old school to the new school in Sycamore School.
Yeah.
So they used to paint them on the floor, the hopscotch things and all this sort of stuff. We used to play British Bulldog.
Right, yeah.
Gosh. Fusion. Oh my goodness, I can't remember all of them.
Let me ask you about Dobby.
Yeah, Dobby. We used to play that one. Blind Man's Buff.
Yeah.
Dobby was the one where you'd have to you point someone as the person who's going to be chasing everybody else around, and as soon as they caught somebody, then it'd be that next person, but they'd have to count to 10 so everyone could spread out. British Bulldog was that you stood in a line and then people would try and get through that line.
From one side of the playground to
the other. So they'd be in the middle of the playground. There would be half a team there, and then the rest would be trying to get through, and then they'd change it round. Once they caught everybody. Oh my gosh. So many different games. I moved up to Hyson Green in 1994. When my son was about 4 months old or something, and it took me about 6 months to a year to actually find out that there was a residence group in the area. I joined the residents group around about 95. And one of the things that the residents group what had happened is that they got some money for getting a youth and play centre, community centre up and running. And they asked me to join along with a few other people. And the first place where I first met them was at the Albany Hotel, Albany pub, across the road from my house, Collison Street. It was on Birkin Avenue.
Yeah. I think that's still there, isn't it? The Albany.
Yeah, the Albany's still there.
Yeah.
We finally found a building, which was the Smith Sale Arms, which we turned into a youth and play centre. And I started with the youth side first.
Yeah.
So with a lady called Jo, we went and did outreach work first.
Yeah.
And that's how we first got getting the kids into the centre. And to take ownership of the youth side as well, and this youth project.
Is this what became the TARDIS on Radford? So this is on Radford Road, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It was quite successful because we ran both play and youth in the centre, and we also did an in-between bits so that the kids from the play side could graduate, like with school, up to the youth side.
Yeah.
But they interacted and talked to each other,
Yeah.
the youth and play workers in our centre, so that they could keep it a nice smooth flow from the play to the youth.
So what sort of ages then? So from
when
what to what?
it was like school age, when you go from little school to big school.
Yeah.
So basically the kids from about 11, 12 would go and join some of the 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 11, 12-year-olds.
And do some of the youth stuff.
Together with the play kids.
And what would be the sort of the starting age then? For we're talking like 5 upwards then for the.
So we did it from 0. So we had a nursery in there.
Right.
To up to 25-year-olds.
Right.
And then we did the community side as well. So we tried to do coffee mornings and stuff like that, and any other things that we could run in the centre we tried to do. The reason why it was done is because there was nothing, absolutely nothing, for the young people in our area.
Yeah.
And they were getting fed up, bored. There was a few burnt out houses because there wasn't any. When I first went down onto that street, onto the street where I went to live, there was at least 2 burnt out houses there because of the boredom of the kids. The play spaces weren't safe for them to be on because there was people who was drinking and having drugs on there.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why a fence was put up round the park.
Which park are you talking about now?
Right, the one where the Bentinck School was.
Up at the top of.
Up at the top. That's why it's got a fence put round it, because children were not safe to play in that area because people would come in and drink and smoke and have drugs in them areas, and they were finding needles and all sorts of things lying around.
Yeah.
Every time the kids had to go out to play, they play in that area, even from in the school day, would have to play in that area with them adults walking in and out and through it.
Yeah.
Which wasn't fair on the children. That was the mid-90s when that happened.
Yeah.
It was just coming up to 2000 actually.
Right, okay.
When I think they've gone in to seal that school off. But we can't blame them. Yeah. But they're locking it now for the kids in the evening times, and you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know,
so
at least leave them have it.
The children can't get on either now.
No, they can't. They're locking it all the time. So, which is against everything that we really wanted for the kids as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's nowhere again for the kids to play. But at least when we knew that a lot of the crime dropped in that area when we had that play centre up and running.
What sort of things do you remember doing with the children then? What sort of activities? And because obviously
Play
you had
on
the
the
building.
park.
Yeah.
We did all the games, the parachute games.
Yeah.
Did activities as much as we could, painting. All different activities.
Yeah.
With
And I
them
guess
as much as we
it was
can.
just a place in that local community.
Yeah,
that
but
people
we do it.
knew they could come to.
We did a lot of play schemes in the centre as well.
Yeah.
So we did over the summer holidays, any holidays what came up, apart from Christmas time.
Yeah.
And we did the same for play youth as well.
Right.
We did a lot of youth stuff for them.
Yeah.
We had 2 really good teams, absolutely brilliant, and worked very hard. They worked so hard to make sure that things run as smoothly as possible. And like we said, we did that link between the youth and the play, which we think should happen everywhere.
Yeah.
Not just from our centre, but from all the all of the council run projects.
There should be
as well.
a close link, shouldn't there?
Yeah, they shouldn't separate it.
Yeah.
Basically, young people will go straight onto youth play if you get them in connection with the right people.
Yeah.
But if you don't use them links and you don't work with each other, then they won't know about the other projects later on. So they'll go off and do what they want to do. But if you keep them interested, they will carry on with the youth and play, and and from the play to the youth, I should say.
Yeah.
It got really good in the area. Not every single time, not every single child would join in, but then you're not expecting all of that. But at least the majority of kids did try and did want to come. So.
And how long did that go for?
We managed to keep the project alive for at least nearly 4 years.
Did you have any links with Playworks during that time?
Oh yeah, that's where we got some of our play workers from the actual Playworks project.
Right.
We worked very closely with Nottingham Playworks.
Yeah.
So that they understood what we was doing, and we asked for their help for coming onto the parks as well, because we only had we had enough play workers for a little while, and then we needed to gain other people to the other play workers on board for that area. Quite a few young people who had troubles back then came and turned out to be really good, cool human beings.
Yeah.
I remember a few of them, but it did prove the fact that you have to have youth and play, especially play for them young kids to be able to find something and find some purpose in life. They're not finding any purpose at this moment. It's all phones, it's all this, it's all just being on computers. They're not socialising anymore. They're not knowing how to be out there in that big wild world, because parents do not see the world like we used to see it, and they see that it's more of a danger than a good thing.
Than an opportunity.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and it's people should get out, let their children to get out more, but they need a safe environment to be able to do that in, and that's what we did for them, the youth and play. With the play and youth, I should say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And one thing I'm interested in hearing, Helly, is how do you think your own experiences playing, so the things you've told me about playing on St Anne's Adventure Playground and running wild on the allotments, how do you think that helped you to provide opportunities for the young people?
It provided good memories for me.
Yeah.
I don't think that them children who did the youth and play with us, I think they've got good memories now. I think it feels the same way. I feel like I was in a good environment and that I felt safe, you know, and even if it was playing on the park, we had a keeper on the park. We had somebody there who we could go to say, look, something's just gone off or this child's hurt themselves. And now there's no one there to protect them kids, you know. And I mean, even if it's just one person just going round every other park, maybe every other day, would be good to just make sure that kids are playing okay and doing fine. But there's no play work and there's no... For me, that was a really big thing to know that there was adults out there who did actually care about how we played.
Yeah.
And it gave me that gumption to want to do it for my kids and for other people's kids. Play is very important for children.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very for play.
Yeah.
You know, and for youth work and for anything which keeps them kids occupied and doing something. When you take it away and you take the funding out of it, that's it. And you'll find that the kids, okay, they're going to do their own thing, but they're going to get really, really bored. Them flats behind the back of that picture, where I'm standing, are exactly the same sort of flats which I lived in.
Right.
On Bradford, Hunger Hill Road.
For
I
your
remember
early
living
memories.
in the old houses in St Anne's.
Right.
And they were terrace houses,
Yeah.
which I was telling you about.
Yeah.
The terrace houses were actually to one side where the Pentecostal church is.
Right.
And we used to walk up and go up Shelton Street School to get to there, to get to our school.